We got this StreamYard duck up in our business, and we're here with John and ECDHE.
The channel's going cheap, man. I don't have paid memberships anymore, so
You,
we got to use the free version of StreamYard now.
Yeah, they put you up in that that upper echelon tax bracket in Toledo. That wasn't cool when you had so many people subscribing and throwing you Patreon money. The bucks. You know what Biggie says, man. Mo money, mo problems, baby.
Who?
It's okay. I'll sit here and have my pet duck on a finger over here. Let's see. This is harder to do than
right, because everything's mirrored.
We've got an interview tonight,
Mr.
John. What do you want to say about our man?
Well, I'm really excited to have our guest on. Yes, Braylon, we are actually live. Look at that. I'm very excited to have our guest on because before I jumped on YouTube, I obviously YouTubed a lot of things. I looked up Atari 7800 a lot, and there wasn't a whole lot on YouTube about 7800 stuff. There was a guy named No Swear Gamer. He did some really cool stuff. Vinny, that's how I came across Vinny mainly, was by looking at stuff. And there was some awesome panels by a man named Steve GOLSON from various retro gaming expos and stuff from I think 2016, back in the mid 2010s, I think they mainly were from. But these panels were incredible. They were incredibly insightful. And the coolest part about it was that Mr. Steve GOLSON was there during the 7800. He was part of the development team that worked on it, and his anecdotes and personality and stories were just absolutely incredible. So I always wanted to reach out to him.
I think he wants to be called the Lord and Savior
of
the Atari 70. Is that not what he wants to be called?
No, and wait till we bring him out so he can defend himself, because we don't need another scenario where you're feeling up people's wives and stuff on this.
Hey,
yeah,
she fell on me first.
Right. But yeah.
Well, hey, so Steve GOLSON, they're asking, who is Steve GOLSON? I feel like this is a loaded question, but who is he with?
Who was he with? We all know who he's with. Should we just bring him out?
Let's bring the guy out.
Let's bring the guy out. Why don't we have him on the screen? Here he is, Mr. Steve GOLSON, ex-GCC. How you doing?
Well, now that I'm not muted, I'm doing better.
We're so excited to have you on, and everybody wants to know, with the duck on Vinny's finger, who is Steve GOLSON? And like I said, I thought everybody knew who you was, because I know who Steve GOLSON is. I think ECDHE knows.
Oh yeah. Well,
I'll give you the
one who suggested you reach out to him.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah. Yeah. So former GCC employee, and GCC, for people that don't know, was Atari behind Atari, right?
That's one way to put it. For a few years there, we were this secret outfit on the East Coast that was doing a tremendous amount of development work for Atari. Mm-hmm. And how that all got started is a fun story, but basically that was the result of it. From like 82 through 84, we did like $500 million worth of product for Atari.
Well, I guess for people that don't, because the story isn't a pretty good story actually of how that came to be. Now, wasn't it your company was doing what was it, speed up kits, enhancement kits for Missile Command?
Right. Okay. So the quick summary is we were all students at MIT, and two of my friends that I lived in the dorm with, Doug McCrae and Kevin Curran, the two of them started up a partnership, the two of them, to put pinball games in our dormitory, McGregor House dorm at MIT. And they went in 50-50, and they put in a pinball game, and they bought another one, and they bought another one. And then eventually they branched out and added video games, and then branched into a second dorm and a third dorm. And this was a pretty lucrative thing for them as still students to make some money and learn about the game industry. There were speed up kits back then that were sold to the arcade owners to speed up your asteroids or improve your Galaxians game. And none of this was authorized by the manufacturers, but it was a cheap way to keep your game going and making money for the arcade owner. And Kevin and Doug had 3 Missile Command games, and the revenues are strong for a while, and then they drop off as the players get good at the games. So they said, well, we need a speed up kit for Missile Command. And they went around and talked to the various people who were doing these little speed up kits, and nobody had Missile Command because it was a technically challenging game. It was more difficult than the simple types of kits that people had done. And Kevin and Doug were like, well, hey, we go to MIT. I bet we could make one. And that was the beginning of General Computer, was Kevin and Doug and a handful of us who were friends and were sharing this townhouse in Brookline outside of Boston, but still, at least some of us were still students going to school. And we started up this company just for fun, basically, to do this enhancement kit for Atari Missile Command. It was called Super Missile Attack, and we brought it out, and it was phenomenally successful as far as kits go. And we were like, wow, Kevin and Doug were like, geez, this is great. We'll do this again. But cutting the long story very short, Atari sued us for $15 million. They were not happy with our kit that we had done. And so we went to court with Atari, and I think they thought we were just going to roll over and die, and just like, oh my gosh, we're scared of the biggest consumer electronics company in the world coming after a bunch of MIT dropouts. And we're like, dude, well, this sounds like fun.
I really like how you mentioned, was it like Atari said that you had an unfair competitive advantage over Atari?
That was one of the claims in the lawsuit, was we were unfair. What was the exact phrase? But yeah, we were unfairly competing with Atari.
Like, seriously, guys?
And copyright infringement and trademark infringement and all these things that we had thought about when we did our kit, that we would not violate any Atari intellectual property. We built it and designed it very carefully. And so the lawsuit's proceeding, and eventually Atari was like, why are we suing these people? This is really dumb. They're smart folks and they want to design games. Why don't they design games for Atari? So they dropped the suit, and we signed a development agreement with them, and to design.
What year was this, Steve?
1981.
1981. Okay.
Yeah, we started, the kit came out in May, June of 81. The lawsuit happened in late July and went through August, September, and beginning of October, we signed the deal with Atari. So it all happened extremely quickly.
At that point, they had already. So what you said about your story kind of intrigues me, is that they already had bad PR with the folks at Activision, like David Crane and them guys, and they left, and there was some lawsuits and stuff, and Atari at this point was lawsuit happy, and it probably wasn't a good optic. There was a lot of lawsuits going around in video games back then, and a lot of times, even though they would sue, they wouldn't win. So there were quite a number of lawsuits that were quite valid, because people were, wholesale ripping off games and pirating games, making complete clones of Pac Man and asteroids, or selling unauthorized T-shirts, and so a lot of that was quite valid from the manufacturer's point of view. And I think
thought we were doing the same things. Oh, it's just more of those ripoff people. But no, we were very careful to not copy any Atari code. We left the credit in the copyright for Atari because most of the code was still Atari code. And it was not at all clear that Atari was going to win the suit. And I think that was the biggest reason they wanted to drop it, because if we had won, that would have set a really bad precedent for them, that it was legal to modify games as an end user. And Atari didn't want any part of that. So they were like, okay, let's drop this suit. We can't afford to lose it. And these guys are smart guys. We'll get them to design games for us.
Yeah.
So
no,
when
you were officially an Atari employee, what was the first
thing?
Oh
no, we were never Atari employees. Oh no. General Computer was a separate company.
They're contractors.
And it actually was a partnership between Warner Communications, and General Computer. Had a partnership to create another entity, also called General Computer, to create product that would be sent off to Atari.
Yeah. What was your first project?
We started on arcade games was the first thing we worked on. We had some early projects. One was called Fireman that we worked on. Oh. But really quickly, Food Fight and Quantum, what became those two games, were started very early on. And by this time it's early 82, and those both came out in 83. So it took about a year or so to develop those. But that all started in early 82, doing arcade development for Atari.
Arcade development, and then 2600 and 5200 as well.
Right, that all started in spring of 82. Initially, we were not going to do. It was all arcade. It was all arcade stuff we were going to do, and so here's the story with how this happened. In early April of 82, Atari is in a bad way. Another chunk of engineers is threatening to leave the company. Pac Man for 2600 has just come out beginning of April and gets horrid reviews. Right, Atari thinks this is gonna be the big thing for 1982, and it comes out, and it's like, why are we getting these bad reviews? Because we're Atari and it's Pac Man and it should be awesome. So early April, Kevin, our president, Kevin Curran, gets a phone call from Manny Gerard, who's the head of Office of the President of Warner Communications. And I think also on this phone call might have been Skip Paul, Atari General Counsel, so here's how Kevin recounts this story. And the reason Kevin remembers it, that it was early April, was because Kevin was at his accountant working on taxes, right? And the phone rings at General Computer. I want to talk to Kevin Curran. Well, he's not here right now. Where is he? Well, he's at his accountant's. What's the phone number? Right? I mean, nobody has cell phones. Nobody has anything. So they called Kevin at his accountant's office. It's like, Kevin, what? Can you write VCS carts? What the hell? What's a VCS cart? It's like, how big are they? 2K bytes. Some of them are 4K bytes. Kevin's thinking, sure, yeah, we could write those. How long would it take you? I don't know, a few months. Kevin's doing the math. He's thinking, how long did it take us to do the super missile attack kit? And how long would it take us to do, 4K bytes churned out? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, all right, it would take about that long. And while they're on the phone, they negotiate the agreement. Okay, we need you to do 7 cartridges for us by September. I was like, okay, we'll give you $70,000 a cartridge in advance of royalties. I was like, okay, I guess they're serious. Tell us the account number to send the money to. $500,000 got sent that day from Atari. I mean, this is how panicked and crazy they were. They wanted us to start working on this.
I love this story so far.
Kevin calls. Awesome. He hangs up from Atari. He calls his banker, the General Computer banker at US Trust. He's like, who handles the General Computer business. He's like, take $1 out of your pocket. Go open a new account for us. Tell me the account number. And he calls Atari and bam, $500,000 hits the account that day. And off we go. And by September, as promised, we had 7 titles done, high quality, delivered on time. And Atari thought, oh my gosh. Well, Warner thought, okay, this is what's going to save us, is these people in Cambridge are going to start cranking out cartridges for us.
What were the 7 games?
Ms. Pac Man.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even talk about how Ms. Pac Man came around.
Yeah.
Ms. Pac Man, Centipede, Vanguard, Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
Combat 2, which I don't think ever actually came out.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
And
they eventually released.
Yeah, years later.
And Rubik's Cube or Atari Video Cube, whatever it got renamed as. I think that's 7, something like that.
So, so that's some pretty heavy hitters for Atari at the time.
Oh yeah,
right. Because they had, so that was their problem. They had the rights to a lot of these arcade games, and they had nobody to do the port, right, to 2600. And we're like, whoa, we can do this. We can crank it out. We can hire more MIT students. And so nobody knew about us, right? It wasn't like we were Atari people. It was this separate little outfit in Cambridge.
I gotta ask.
Take it and ship the ROMs off to Atari.
Yeah.
So
did you realize? I guess you didn't realize how underpowered the 2600 is.
Oh, sure we did. Oh yeah. I mean, it was, but that was part of the. As an engineering student at MIT, it was just another puzzle to solve.
Okay.
Right? You're given this incredibly limited capabilities of this machine, and you have to figure out how to make it do stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's what we could do. Another advantage we had, I think, right from the start, compared to the Atari engineers, was we could use more ROM. I think some of the Atari engineers had a difficult time arguing with their management that this needs to be a 4K game. No, 2K. All you get is 2K. Go make the game.
Oh God.
All right. Whereas all we had to do was tell Kevin and Doug, who were engineers, it was like, what do you need to do this game? Well, it's got to be 4K, or it's got to be 8K, right? Or we need to do bank switch, whatever, because the bank switching was just starting to come. But all we had to do was tell Kevin, this is what we need to do. And Kevin was like, yeah, fine, that's what we're going to do, and just provide it to Atari as a fait accompli. Warner didn't care.
Wow.
So you're bypassing all these levels of management in Atari that are pushing back on the engineers.
Yeah.
So I think that was another big advantage we had. Why is Ms. Pac Man for 2600 such a better port than Pac Man? Well, we had twice as much ROM. And I think part of that was our ability to push back and say, we're not going to do this in 2K. That's nuts.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this real quick. So, Ms. Pac Man is an incredible game, especially compared to 2600 Pac Man.
Yeah.
At the time that came out, did that do anything to repair the public's trust with the 2600, or was it already flaming out, or was it like, whoa, this is awesome?
I think so. I think so. I think the games that came out in late 1982, and I think most or all of them were our games. Ms. Pac Man and Centipede and Vanguard and Phoenix were very high quality ports, and I think that did help a bit to repair the Pac Man debacle.
And they came out with the new packaging at that time, the silver packaging as opposed to the old black with the block letters.
Oh,
the
yeah,
silver.
that could be. Right.
And
these are, they look better. They're nicer. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, they're a little glitzier, a little funkier.
Right.
Right.
So I think all that may have helped to keep Atari going, and we started doing, oh, can you do 5200? Like, yeah, okay, do that too. Try and keep that platform alive.
Were the people still going to college while they were making these carts?
Nah, we're gone. We're gone by then. There were Kevin and Doug and myself were all supposed to graduate in June of 1981. And as Super Missile Attack was coming, it's like, well, this is way more fun than going to class.
Right.
Yeah. And then you start to get, I mean, we sold about 1,000 Super Missile Attack kits. So that's
wow,
$250,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right, in just a few weeks. And to say, and like,
wow.
oh, there's a market here. This is kind of interesting. Yeah, let's work on games. And so
for people who are ignorant, what were some of the upgrades in Super Missile Attack over Missile Command?
So, okay, this is Arcade Missile Command we're talking about.
Right,
and
with the three towers and the trackball.
Yeah, the biggest thing was it started off easier, but then it got progressively more and more and more difficult. And the difficulty level ramped up to the point where it was just impossible to play forever, right? You just could not play for hours and hours and hours. The difficulty level ramped up. Another thing that was added was we added this new attack object called a UFO. And so you wouldn't see that. Early on, it just played like Missile Command, maybe a little speeds a little different. Mm-hmm. And then this new object would come out, the UFO, and it didn't. Missile Command had an airplane and a satellite, and they would just move at a constant speed across the screen, right? Mm-hmm. And the UFO comes out, and it's moving faster, and it moves back and forth. All right. So that was the first thing it would do differently. And so that would be a few racks of, oh, here's this new attack object. And then it would come out and it would stop. It would make this sort of humming noise. And then bam, and it zapped this laser at your, okay. And so it would there was no defense. It wasn't that it shot another missile that you could then defend against. It just zapped you with this laser. And so the player's like, oh my gosh, if I let it sit there and do its little zoom up noise, I'm dead. So it was a new attack object. And
that sounds very similar. That sounds very similar to the UFO and Liberator. Did you guys
don't know that one?
Don't know. Okay. People have called that Missile Command in reverse. Yeah. You're kind of like the bad guys are the people on the planet and you're the heroes.
But Liberator was a cool arcade game, but
they stole your idea, so touche.
Well, no, it's like we were talking about before, where they outright stole games, but not exactly. They did the reverse, I guess, and a whole lot different. But the big thing, and the thing I'm extremely interested in, because Vinny and myself and probably ECDHE a little bit too, we're all massive Atari 7800 fans, huge. And obviously GCC is known, at least but with us, for having worked with the 7800. I guess my question is, as basic as it is, how did that all come to be? Did you decide to do a console? Did they approach you?
So let's go back to the sort of the GCC timeline. In late '82, we had in Cambridge, which is where we were located. Nightmare. Yeah, talk about Nightmare.
Yeah, we'll talk about it
late '82, October of '82. This company called VLSI Technology Incorporated, or VTI, came to General Computer to do a little pitch about, hey, we're a new chip company. We've got a new way of doing chip design. It's not magic anymore. Anybody can do chips. We've got this software and we've got training classes, and we can teach you how to put your system, your idea onto a single custom chip. And we were hardware guys, and we thought, well, that's really interesting. And tell us more. Oh, and we've got these 4-week training classes. Oh, really? When does your next training class start? Well, it started today. It was a Monday. It started today. And Kevin Curran turns and he looks at me because he realizes I don't have any projects ongoing at the moment. And Kevin just sort of looks at me. I'm like, okay. And 4 hours later, I was on a plane to California. And that I missed the first day of the class. And that really impressed the VTI people, who were Silicon Valley folks, right? And they thought that Silicon Valley people moved fast. And here were these Cambridge, East Coast people, and that quite impressed them. So I took this class for 4 weeks, learned their tools, learned a little bit about chip design, and which was kind of odd because my background actually was in earth science, in geophysics, and not double E, but that's another fun story to tell. And I came back and I said, wow, this is great. We can all do this. And we did an in-house class at General Computer. There were a bunch of training videotapes that they had, and we watched these tapes. And I gave some lectures, and we got our own VAX computer to run the tools. And we're like, wow, we're going to do chip design. This is yet another thing that GCC can do. And we had this great brainstorm in late 1982, December, about we're going to do this graphics home computer with video games emphasized, and we're going to call it Spring. Spring was our code name for it. And we dreamed up this entire architecture for how's the graphics going to work, and it's going to have cartridges, and you're going to plug it in, and it's going to be a home computer, but it's also going to play awesome games, and this is the architecture for how the graphics is going to work. And we had this idea for Spring, and it had 4 or 5 custom chips that it was going to take to do custom sound and graphics and playfield graphics and sprite graphics. So Spring, awesome. And so early '83, we're cranking away. All these hardware guys are like thinking about the chips that we're going to do and sketching out this idea for Spring. This is going to be this incredible product. Well, and I'm not sure if it came from Atari or came from us, but it was like, yeah, okay, that's going to be wonderful. But, what can we do right now? What can we do right now, short term, to help out 2600? 2600 sales are slumping. And is there something we can do to kickstart this system? And so we sort of sit down and have this little brainstorm of like, okay, yeah, what can we crank out in a hurry and then get back to doing Spring, which is really what we want to do. Okay, we'll take TIA and we'll hack up TIA and we'll add some more players and missiles to TIA. And as soon as you look at that, it's like, no, that's a nightmare. You don't want to take this ancient technology and try and learn enough to modify. No. Because maintaining compatibility, that was the big thing. Whatever we do, it has to be 2600, right? Because 5200 is already out and already people are whining about, you've brought out this thing and I can't play my old cartridges on it, right? All right, we're going to maintain compatibility. And it was like, compatibility, just put a TIA on the board and, we'll add new stuff and basically it'll be compatible because we'll just put it TIA. Don't make your new thing backward compatible. Just keep the old thing there. And we're thinking about Spring, our Spring ideas of having a single line RAM buffer, which is a very arcade style way of doing graphics, which is how Spring was going to work. So, well, we can do that for this too. It won't be quite as high res, but it'll be fine. Let's build a line RAM. We'll build a double buffered line RAM. And that's what got us started on what initially was called the 3600 system and the Maria graphics and sound chip, as initially it had sound as well. So, we'll get this hacked out soon. It'll take us a couple months. It'll be out for Christmas '83, and then we'll get back to doing Spring. So that was sort of the beginning of it. And I honestly don't know. I'd have to ask Kevin or Doug, who would remember. Did this come from the Warner people? Like, hey, can you guys do something about 2600? Right? And or did it just come from us? Because we were already thinking about enhancements to 2600. One of the things we had pitched already was a RAM upgrade for 2600, a super RAM card. That's how it all started. So early 83. All right, let's do this 3600. We got this chip. We'll call it Maria.
Can I interrupt you for a second and ask two questions here before we go further? So I'm interested in this. So is the TIA on the 7800 board? Did that maintain? Yeah. Okay, that was actually genius. I understood what you were saying, and I was like, that's actually really cool.
Yes.
And so that's interesting. So you took care of that problem, and then you can put
I think
something
he's going to show us something, Vinny. Hold on.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Hey. There's 7800 for you. Right? And there, let's see. This is Maria.
Hello, Maria.
Sally
Hi, Maria.
Processor, and one of these, I can't remember which is which.
Sally, that's the CPU, right?
This is Sally is a 6502 modified slightly for Atari, and the same one that's in the 400 and 800. And this is the 6532. No, this is the 6532, and this is the TIA.
Cool.
These are RAMs. So there's a TIA in the board. So that was the thing. It's like, we want to be compatible. Don't make your chip compatible. Just put the old chip on the board.
All right.
And again, I think this is again, Atari engineers could probably not get away with that. Because management would immediately push back on them. Oh my God, 2 chips? Oh, that's going to be so expensive. How could we possibly do that? And we were like, this makes the most sense. We're just going to do it this way from an engineering standpoint. And it costs what it costs.
Although, to be fair, Atari did release with the 400 and 800, they did release something that was outrageously expensive with the shielding.
Yeah.
So they did
they were trying to do the right thing by the FCC. It was expensive. Okay.
They went overboard because Apple did not do that.
Well, arguably, Apple was not FCC compliant, so.
But anyway,
it costs money. Yeah.
It seems like basically GCC stepped up to the plate as Atari was losing its know-how because they were not able to release any new hardware after 79. They tried to do the 3200, that didn't go anywhere. The 5200 was just the same hardware as the 400 800. So
400 800, yeah.
And
I don't know what was going on internal to Atari, if they were because we were kept very isolated from the Atari people. Kevin and Doug did not want us to be tainted by the Atari engineers, and
that was probably a good call.
Keep us separate for many reasons. So we were zooming ahead on new hardware, and I think again Warner thought that was tremendous. Warner looked at us as a way to create more product for Atari manufacturing, right? Who cares? All right, Atari design might be problem, but boy, the Atari manufacturing people could sure crank out product.
But
Atari
lost a lot of people. I mean,
yes,
they lost the whole J-Mouter team. The guys who designed 2600 and Atari 8-bit, they were gone.
Yeah.
Aside from Activision, aside from Imagic, they lost also their hardware guys. They lost when the fact GCC came up with several games and the next gen console says a lot about the sad state of Atari was in back then.
Well, and to the credit of GCC, I mean, you guys were sounds like basically the saviors of Atari at the time, or at least.
Well, they stepped up to the plate,
exactly.
Yeah, so. I mean, if you look at the product that we developed and the cartridges that came out, it certainly kept them afloat for a while there, right?
I have to ask though, why Maria? Why was the chip named Maria? It seems like Sally, Tia, Maria. Why is it always? I don't know. Maybe that's not relevant.
Well, it came. That was Art Ing was one of our engineers, and he pointed out that there's this coffee rum liqueur called Tia Maria, and so if you have Tia, then well, we'll have Maria, and so that's where Maria came from, and so it is not an acronym, right? TIA stands for Television Interface Adapter, but Maria is just a name. So it really shouldn't be all capitals. It should just be Maria.
Oh, wow.
Unless you're shouting, unless you're shouting for the coffee liqueur.
Unless you're shouting,
hey, Maria!
and eventually we were thinking ahead. Eventually, if you do a cost reduced 7800, you would put both chips on one die. You could do a combo chip of Tia Maria. There's some of the output RF logic is the same in both chips. They have to be compatible with the TV, and so you could share that. And in fact, wait, where do I have it again?
Oh boy!
See, here's my. Can you see that?
Oh God!
Yes.
Can I put him full screen?
It's a giant wallet.
Yeah, but
schematics.
Tia Maria preliminary schematics.
Oh wow!
So this is the schematics for the combo chip, and this is when May of '84.
Oh wow!
Look at that!
Right.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Right. So because that's right when, and here's the two of them together. Stephanie, I guess that's the code name for TIA. Who knew? Was right. So May of '84, the 7800 gets announced, and Atari's already thinking about, okay, how we're going to cost reduce this. Oh, well, we'll put both these chips together. Right. Maria there's a lot of white space in Maria, as a chip designer would say. It was designed extremely rapidly, and there's all kinds of ways you could make it smaller, make it less area, and so yeah.
So there's a couple people in the chat who are saying some stuff, and it actually you said something that made me think this too. One thing you saw videotapes, or you had videotapes from Atari that was supposed to train. Are any of those surviving?
Oh, no, from VTI.
Yeah.
There were tapes from VTI about how to use their chip design software and how to do custom chip design.
Are any of those in existence today?
Oh, probably, but they were. It was. I mean, it's a very common thing. It was called the Meade-Conway design style, and it was somewhat revolutionizing the custom chip world at that point, of bringing system level designers and giving them the ability to do chip design, to do custom chip design, sort of what we would call today ASICs. And so that was the sort of the beginning of the ASIC revolution, if you will, was doing these.
So does anybody else have those schematics to that combo chip, or is that just something that you have, or is...
No idea. I have them. I was something of a pack rat. I have all kinds of one-of-a-kind things.
Oh,
I love that you had the foresight.
Nobody has. And,
I love that you had the foresight.
We need to find a good home for them, so I'm not sure where all this is going.
I'm sure there's many copies of the schematics.
Probably, yeah.
The fact that you have, I think you have on Mr. FPGA, you have a 7800 core means like they have schematics somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. I've seen those sorts of things, and copies of them, and the various programming guides that we had. Those have come out, and people have those.
Gotcha. Now, I did want to do a sort of Q&A with the audience here, but Jeremiah brought up something that I think is interesting.
Here's Maria, right?
Oh, hold on. Well, I want to
That
get
is
you
cool. Look at that.
So this was a poster.
Wow.
That Doug McCrae wanted to have made and given to all the developers who worked on the Maria chip. And so, in fact, on the back, see, it's got my name on there because this is my copy of this poster. And so there's the Maria.
And one thing, guys, you may not notice, but actually the big square in the middle, if I'm correct, that's the double line buffer.
This part.
Yeah. Look at how big this thing is.
Yeah. Yeah. It took up a lot of room. And looking back on it, we could have done that a lot more efficiently, but this was, how can we get it out the door in a big hurry? So,
cool, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Here you go. Here's more info. You ready?
Hold on.
There you go.
Yep.
So that's the block diagram. This is from one of my presentations. I put it together, but showing what's where.
Well, I really regret not paying for StreamYard this month.
The duck is like, let me look at that.
I know.
Yeah. Let me look at that. Yeah.
Right.
So that was, 7800 was, we started work really in beginning of April of 83. And 1st of July of 83, we taped it out and we had parts back within a couple of weeks. So by late July, I mean, it's just unheard of. So it's basically, April, May, June.
Wow.
Who designed the look? Who designed the look for the 7800? Was it you guys?
The plastic?
The shell.
Yeah.
Oh, that came from Atari. They already had that, the plastic and the controls actually. They already had that done for some new 2600 version. And so,
wow.
So that all came from Atari. Lucky, because it takes an incredible amount of time to develop plastic to do that sort of work. So that all came from them. Everything else came from us.
Did you end up being disappointed with the controllers?
No, not really. Better than 5200 controllers.
Oh, yeah.
And you got 2 buttons, which was something that we came up with. I think Dan Schwinn actually came up with having 2 separate buttons. I mean, looking back on it, why were we so wedded to the joysticks? I mean, how come we didn't develop the D-pad, right? And because you were trying to recreate the arcade experience.
Yep.
And so you have to make it a joystick, and nobody thought that maybe there's another way to do it. And but yeah, they were okay. And compared to the 2600, compared to 5200, and even to 2600, it's like, okay, these are pretty good.
I never had a problem with the Pro line until I got older. Now that I'm older, my forearms burn when I'm really getting into it. But as a kid, I never minded those.
Well, these things were made for kids. They weren't made for old men. We just grew. The children grew up. That's what happened.
Right.
And
so. Yeah.
Now, like in retrospect, is there anything you would do differently design-wise with the 7800?
Oh yeah. I mean, I wish we had not dumped the audio. Right. We had this.
I was going to ask that.
And we had that.
Initially, right from the start, Maria was supposed to have audio as well. We had it all designed. We had it sketched out. We had, better video, better audio. And we did not have time to do the design, to do the sound. And we didn't have area on the chip. If you look at the plot there, it's like, well, where would the sound logic have gone? And part of that was, looking back on it, remember, we're trying to do this for December of 83. We're in April of 83. It's like, we're going to get this out so damn fast. We're going to get it out into the market, get the chip done. And by July, when we got the first version of Maria back and realized that it wasn't, we needed to modify it, and that's what became Maria 2. And it's like, okay, we're not going to make December of 83. and Christmas sales is what drives everything in the industry back then. Okay, it's going to be December 84. Okay, now we've got more time. Looking back on it, it would have been, gee, we should have figured out it was Maria 2 to begin with. We should have figured out we could add audio. And so that's one thing I would change. Bigger line RAM would have been a big thing to change if we designed it using a different memory cell that allowed us to have more memory on the chip.
Okay.
Now I want to clarify something, because I've always heard that they, as a cost reduction, they decided to go. They wanted you guys to design it with the TIA chip, the TIA chip, but you're saying it was a time crunch thing where you were just like, we don't have time to go into designing a new sound, and we didn't have space.
As far as the TIA always had to be there for compatibility. All right, so that was kind of the fallback of, well, we'll just use the TIA audio, and we already know how to do that. And you actually get a little bit of a benefit because you have more compute time available and you've got bigger ROMs in 7800 cartridges. So all of that allows you to do better job with TIA sound a little bit. Okay. So that gives you, so there is some improvement there. You look at 7800 Ms. Pac Man, for example. It's like, that's okay. That's pretty good. But we had a solution and that was going to be the mini sound chip, which was, okay, we're going to design a sound. We don't have time to put it in 7800, to put it in Maria, but we'll design this sound chip that is incredibly inexpensive, so cheap we can put one on every cartridge, right? And that was mini. And so we were working on the mini design, and it actually was done by early 84. By the time 7800 was announced, we had mini chips working in the lab. And we knew that, okay, starting by late 84, early 85, all cartridges would have minis in them, and that would solve the sound issue. And that would be another kicker to 7800, right? You know, you have the initial build of cartridges, and then there would be the now with improved sound, and you would get that. So it's like, all right, we'll get through the first few cartridges here through 1984, and then we'll have mini, and that'll fix the sound.
How cheap was mini? Like, are we talking about a chip that was a couple bucks in each cartridge?
It was supposed to be $1.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Yeah, mini was going to be $1.
Was it in line with Pokey audio essentially, or was it improved beyond that?
Better than Pokey.
Better than Pokey.
It was digital synthesis, 3 voices, custom waveforms for each cartridge potentially.
Wow.
I've got the specs for it, and it would be interesting to build a simulation so
similar to the
sound like.
Yeah.
Right. Plus you would still have TIA sound.
Right.
Okay. So you would have, you would have really interesting sound, and it would be way cheaper than Pokey. So yeah, $1.
Wow.
That was the goal.
That's incredible. What could have been?
Yeah, exactly. What could have been,
Wow.
And like, all right, yeah, we had that solved. Sorry, we didn't put it. But you said, what would I have done differently? It's like, geez, I really wished we could have folded that into Maria. I wish we could have gotten Maria to be more efficient with its silicon area. If we could have the line RAM be twice as big by having the cell be half the size, right? That would be one thing. Oh, and from a system perspective, I remember having this discussion about how much RAM. Okay, right. 7800. There are two 2K byte SRAMs on the board. Gives you a 4K total. Well, right at the time we were making that decision, the 8K RAMs single chip had become available. So it's like, okay, which one do we use? Do we use the 2K RAM or do we use the spiffy new 8K RAM? And it was totally driven by price. And price based on December of 83, which is not when it actually came out. So looking back on it, it would have been ditch the two 2K RAMs and have a single 8K RAM. And now you've got twice as much memory, right? So, you know, you look back on it, you can make little things like that.
Okay.
Right.
But that's the big things. Audio, maybe better line RAM, more memory on the main board.
Now, one of the criticisms that people said about the 7800 was that its main graphic resolution was 160 pixels compared to 256 for the ColecoVision or the NES.
Yeah.
Was it the line RAM that was the bottleneck, or were there other reasons why you guys didn't use 256?
Well, it has a 320 pixel mode, right?
Yes.
So there's ways to do that. You reduce the number of you reduce the number of colors you have. Yeah. And that's partly driven by the size of the line RAM.
Okay.
So if you've got enough line RAM to have 5 bits per pixel for 160 pixels. What if you had enough line RAM to do 5 bits per pixel for 320 pixels?
Okay.
Now, the problem then is now you've got twice as much stuff you've got to pull onto Maria to generate the graphics. So there's this trade-off between that it's unclear at what point do you start saturating the ROM of pulling graphics in to spew it out at 320 pixels, right?
Okay.
So yeah, that would have been nice to have, and it's unclear. But that would, like, if we could have had twice as much line RAM, that's what you would have said. It's like, oh, well, now we've got 320 pixels, but you've got all the colors available, same as the 160 mode, right?
Okay. So, actually, speaking of line RAM, so for those who don't understand, the whole point of the double line RAM is that the chip Maria has a whole scan line to come up to draw the next line.
Yes.
Now
you have an entire scan line of time
to draw the whole thing.
To draw the whole thing, which gives you, if you look at the way time breaks up, like if you look at the Pac Man arcade game, all right, near and dear to my heart, the Pac Man arcade game. There's only a single line RAM, which means you only have the horizontal blank time to do all of the graphics, right? And when you double buffer, you get now 4 times. By double buffering, you have 4 times as much time to fill your line RAM.
Okay.
All right. So that's a huge benefit to do the double buffering.
Actually, just for the sake of comparison, so how does it work on, let's say, Atari 8-bit, ColecoVision, or other systems which do not have double line RAM? So
they're just generating the graphics on the fly.
So,
right?
but like,
that's this whole player missile thing. You've got some hardware in there that says, oh, when you get to this position on the scan line, turn on.
Benny, mute yourself when you type.
Right.
Okay. But
and we were doing this completely different architecture that came from arcade games. Which is what we were going to do for Spring. And it's a way to get a lot of moving objects on the screen. What we call them stamps, but everyone else calls them sprites. And we didn't know any better. So.
Actually, guys, the double line we're talking about here, that's something used by arcade games. That's something used by the Neo Geo. That's something used by the Atari Jaguar.
Yeah. Oh, Jaguar had line RAM?
It does have a double line RAM, yep.
Because the alternative is, because people are like, why do you do that? Well, because if you wanted an entire frame buffer for your screen, it's outrageously expensive back then to have enough memory to have your entire screen in memory. That's the number one problem. The number two problem is you don't have enough time to move things around in that frame buffer.
Yeah.
Because your hardware is not fast enough to do it. There was special hardware called blitters that would move things around. And like, no, forget all that. We don't have time. We don't have money. And so we're just going to do one scan line. And that's it. And the alternative was the player missile graphics, which we didn't like. So let's do this in a more general way, the way arcade games do it, where you know, it's simple pointers of, okay, this character here, you get the overlay naturally to get the layers, you know, the painter's algorithm layers. So that's what it was. Like, we're going to do it this way.
There are later arcades that have the whole frame, like Capcom was using that in its later, but the hardware is outrageously expensive. And we're talking about like 80s.
Yeah, right. I mean, you look at Missile Command. Missile Command arcade game has a complete bitmap, which was one of the reasons it was difficult for the modification people to figure it out, was because it drew a bitmap. And there were a lot of hardware tricks they had to do to make that work. But you know, at that price point, you could afford to put it in.
Yeah.
But for a home console, it's like, no way, couldn't afford it at that point. You know,
the chat room is going crazy. They want to know about the 1984.
I was
go ahead and ask the question, John.
Well, yeah, I'm getting threatened here if I don't shoehorn this in somehow.
Okay, sure.
So there is a fabled 1984 test release for the Atari 7800. And I guess Jeremiah and some of the rest of the chat really want to know, do you know anything about the test, the market testing test release for the 7800? Were you involved in the rollout for that at all, or was that done without GCC?
I don't believe it ever happened.
No, really?
I hear these rumors, and I don't believe it ever happened. If it did, it was extremely limited. I think it was, you know, a lot of systems were sent out to reviewers.
Okay.
I mean, there were lots of that, but it's not like it went on sale somewhere. Right. I mean, that's a really weird thing to try and do. Why? What are you going to learn from that? Nothing. So I don't think that happened. I think it was just lots of them went out to reviewers. Lots of cartridges went out to reviewers, and so you know, maybe they were on show. Somebody had one somewhere, but I don't think it ever actually went on sale as let's put this out on test somewhere and see if somebody buys it. It's like,
what were the reviews like?
Oh, they were great.
Mm-hmm.
I got a whole stack of them here, but people were just gobsmacked that, oh my gosh, Atari finally did something right. All right. The quality of the graphics was amazing. Number one, the quality of the games were, and it's backwards compatible. Really? Oh, thank goodness. And so that was an enormous answer to people who complained about 5200. It's like, I have to buy two. Why do I have to? But no, here's this new thing. 5200 got canceled. That was part of the announcement, right? And it looked like, Atari's got their mojo back, right? They've designed this new system. It's got great graphics. Look at all these things. Oh, there's going to be a home computer. Hey, it's got this clever high score cart. It's backwards compatible. It's wow. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is great. And the gameplay was phenomenal. I mean, that was one thing General Computer was known for, was very precise, very good user interface, user experience gameplay. So the quality of those initial games was really primo, and we just wanted to nail it right out of the gate. So you know, you look at those initial games, the Ms Pac Man and Desert Falcon, Asteroids. And you go, oh my gosh, yeah, this is going to be a winner.
Did you guys do Desert Falcon?
They did.
Yes.
They did all the release games.
That was an original game idea from General Computer, and so the whole thing was done.
Do you know
most of the others were adaptations, right? Most of the other titles.
Do you know that you're talking to the world champion of Desert Falcon?
Really?
Yes.
Oh, is that right?
I am. You go to
is that right? Wow.
He slips that into every conversation. Everybody he meets,
that's how I pick up women at the bar. I'm
right.
like, who the world champion.
Okay. All right.
And then I slide in with, it used to be called Nile Flyer before.
There was yet a different name as well.
Oh, really?
Oh, and it's not very family friendly.
Oh, man.
Oh, well, let's roll with it, baby. I'm X-rated. I'm from Baltimore. He's from Toledo.
This channel is G-rated, but
yes, I'll tell you. I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay.
They were quite proud of it. So Nile Flyer and Desert Falcon, and that was another very interesting game, completely developed, totally original game for 7800.
Now, speaking of big games, was there any talk to do like post-arcade games at GCC?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So after mid '84, when Atari got sold and that all looked like it was falling apart, what are we going to do next? Well, the Macintosh computer, Apple Macintosh, had been introduced in February of '84.
Yep.
And we were already working on Macintosh products.
Okay.
And one of the first products we did was a game for the Macintosh, and it was basically Missile Command for the Macintosh. You don't have a trackball, but you have a mouse, so you could do it. And I can't remember what it was called. I have to dig it out. But so the idea of here's another platform, it's got interesting graphics, we could do games for it.
Okay.
Was an idea, yes. And in fact, we tried to sell Maria as a graphics chip. And follow on Maria architecture as graphics chip to anybody who wants to do graphics, whether it would be arcade or other products. So, but we pretty quickly pivoted to Macintosh. And so, we did have one product, which was a game for the Macintosh.
Which was still kind of arcade kind of game.
Well, it's selling to the home market though, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, but the problem with GCC at that point is we were so used to, we were just a development company, right? Atari did all the marketing and the manufacturing and the sales and all of that. Okay. And so, if we're going to design an arcade game, who's going to build it? We're not going to build it. Not like we're going to come up with a factory to do that. So, who would you talk to? We were already dealing with Bally. But boy, games they looked like they were dead, man. It looks like it was all over. So let's find something else to do.
So that happened. So the crash happened. And then what happened to GCC at that point in Atari's relationship?
So it took a while for that to settle out because GCC was, hey, we're owed money for this 7800 development, right? Mm-hmm. We were expecting this royalty stream to come in and pay us for the development of this. And what the hell happened? And now remember, our deal is with Warner. So you go to Warner and you say, what make us whole? What's going on? And Warner's like, no, that's all Atari. And you go to Atari. So there was a lot of back and forth with the new Atari, Jack Trammell and his folks about what are we going to do. Jack was saying, well, I'll bring out the 7800 for Christmas '84 at $50. Yeah. Like, wait a minute. No, it was supposed to be 150.
Right.
Like, how are we going to, Jack, how are we GCC, how are we going to get any money? He's like, you're not going to get any money. It's like, well, then it's not going to happen. So there was back and forth about, who has the rights to it and who gets paid. And eventually we got a final payoff from New Atari, from Jack, pays us for 7800. Atari has rights to Ms. Pac Man, and future, so that sort of settled everything. And by then, GCC is like, yeah, we're done. We're done with games. We're moving on to we've pivoted to Macintosh.
Do you feel
we have this thing called Hyperdrive, which was the first hard disk for the Macintosh.
Oh wow!
So off we go. Here's our new thing. A bunch of people got laid off, including me.
Just
in October of '84, and the company pivots to new things.
Wow.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were
and went on into there's a long, interesting story about GCC and General Computer. The name changed from General Computer to GCC Technologies, and they did Macintosh peripherals and software and printers, and then a spinoff did a really interesting product called Video Guide, which was one of the first set-top boxes that did automatically displayed your channel guide on your TV.
Okay.
Right? It's like how did basically TV guide on screen is the way to think of it.
Am I crazy? Was that released? I feel like I remember that.
Oh yes, absolutely, was released, and it came out. It was phenomenal. It was an amazing product. And
I remember that.
Yeah, this is like, wait, how does it get the data? Right. It doesn't plug into the phone. There's no internet. It's this box that you put on top of your TV, and it magically knows all the shows on your cable box, and it knows the weather, and it knows the news, and it can it's like
crazy
get the data. Yeah,
crazy stuff. So
did Al Gore invent that?
No.
Oh,
no. Doug McRae and friends invented that. But
no, Al Gore created the internet.
You're wondering, it used the pager network. It used the pager network to get data. Mm-hmm. It's fast enough to get data.
Wow.
And so there's this little antenna on the back. And
I just thought
the
that was
pager network covered the entire United States much more than cellular did at the time.
Right.
And so that's how you got to all the devices.
I just thought that was for drug deals. That's crazy.
Yeah,
mostly. But you could get weather. But so the 7800, Jamel got a hold of it. That pretty much was the end of GCC. He paid out probably
in
nothing.
The games industry, correct?
In the games industry.
Yeah. And he paid out probably nothing compared to what you guys should have received, and far too late beyond that. But now, so that was, the 7800 came out. It kind of didn't do very well. Unfortunately, we're huge fans, but
you mean when it finally came out?
When it finally came out,
yes. So, which I gotta say was, on the one hand, it was gratifying that it did as well as it did, given that it was 2-year-old technology at that point.
Right.
And you look back and go, what might have been, right? If it had come out on time, if it had come out in '84 with Atari's marketing might behind it.
Yep.
What might have been. So,
well, also Atari was so bumbling at the time, where it was like trying to sell the 2600 Junior, 7800,
Jack Tramiel,
the XE, and it was like, and then they were trying to get computers out everywhere, and it was like, what are you pushing? What should we buy?
Had it had the prior regime, I think it would have been a huge success, or at least we love to dream. So but
I mean, who knows? But I look back on it and it's like, wow, it could have been a huge thing, and all the product that we already had designed that was going to come out, the high score cartridge, right? We already had the keyboard software.
Hold on, we got full screen.
What?
Look at that! Wow.
Okay. This is a prototype 7800 keyboard.
So send that to my house. Do you need my address?
It looks like an Atari 800 XL keyboard with the key.
It is. It was just for prototype purposes.
Right.
Just grab a keyboard, and it's got a PIC processor right there. Those custom programmed by GCC. But this would plug into the
look at that.
Joystick port,
the controller
slot
on the 7800. At first, the keyboard idea was it was going to plug into the cartridge slot. It was going to plug in there. And that's how it was going to get into the video and go out that way. But then we had this brainstorm that was like, no. You can just go right through the controller, plug in there, and we cobbled up 2 prototypes in 26 hours and got it all figured out. And so that would have been an amazing product. We had all these different products. Software written, typing tutor, Atari lab, programming. It would use all the existing Atari computer peripherals.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So, it had this very compelling story about here's how here's this amazing system. And it's going to leverage the existing Atari 400, 800 peripherals. And off you go. Look at all this great software we've got for it already. Right. So that was ready to go.
I have to shoehorn this in here. What would the expansion port have been used for if you guys had been able to follow through with that? Is that where
the idea with the expansion port was a video disc? We were working with the RCA capacitive video disc player.
Oh, wow.
And so a scheme where so there were in the arcades there were video disc games, right? Already Dragon's Lair and such like. So the idea was, okay, we're going to have, if you buy the RCA video disc, it would plug into the side of your 7800 and lots of hardware magic that would sync them up. And so now you've got the 7800 graphics and the video disc graphics, and gosh, what kind of games could you do with that?
Right.
So that was the idea with the expansion port. Unfortunately, RCA announced they were canceling that video disc in early '84. So we sort of picked the wrong video disc player, right? But that was the idea behind it. We were actually pretty far along on developing that and getting it to work.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever seen one of these aftermarket?
I know they exist, but I haven't ever seen one. Here, I have
up.
Wait, hold on. Wait, I have here. I have this one.
Whoa!
Wow.
This is a prototype from way back when. Right.
So I need to give you my address so you can send me these things.
Yeah, right.
I want to check and make sure they're legitimate.
Yeah, right. Make sure they work, huh?
Yeah.
Oh no, I have. Let's see. What else do I have here? Oh,
here.
Here, let me see. What else do I have to show off here? Okay, this is a. I think this is a RAM. This would have been like for the home computer, right? Plug in and you get extra RAM for your home computer, and wire wrapped prototype on the back there. Here's a 7800 prototype board that us hardware people had if we were going to do some clever hardware hacking. Was it so it plugs in and it gives you a lot of prototype space to hack up and build stuff if you wanted to. And here's a fun thing. Can you see that
cartridge return to the? Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when we would ship cartridges out to Atari, they would have this little label on them, with the name of the cartridge. Yeah. And it's like, ship it back to us. Well, the stupid Atari people, when they went to CES, they had cartridges with these stickers on them to demo. And so people are walking into the Atari booth going, General Computer, who the heck is that? And it's sort of, we were like this secret outfit in Cambridge, and all of a sudden our cover got blown. So that was, there you go.
That's
are you aware? Do you remember any software, games wise, not computer wise, but games wise, that you guys were working on that never got released?
I got a whole pile of ROMs that I'm in the middle of dumping to look at. But there's a few things that I know, like Choplifter. I have 2600 Choplifter. It's not at all complete, but
Wow.
You can sort of see the chopper fly around. I believe I have, because I was sort of the pack rat. Again, I just sort of collected things and said, I'm just going to, so I ended up with a whole boatload of stuff that I don't think anybody else has.
Yeah.
The Fractalus, I think I've got the Rescue Fractalus.
Wow.
How complete? How complete?
Exactly. I don't know how complete it is. I'd have to dump it and see. Track and field. I think I have track and field.
What?
So we'll see. We'll see what comes out, if I'm able to.
You can. You have my permission.
Yeah. By
the power invested in me by the New York Jets, you can release that to everyone you know.
Jets.
Here, I have another one of a kind. You ready?
Yes,
you ready
sir.
for this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is I believe the only one that exists. Can you see what that is?
Oh wow!
Oh, that's the adapter.
Yes.
No kidding.
For 5200.
This is the 7800 adapter for the poor sods who bought a 5200.
Yes.
Wow.
And
that's cool.
I've seen a picture of that before.
Yeah. My understanding was Atari kept promising to do a 2600 and they never did. Is that correct? I don't think it ever actually came out.
For the 5200, yeah, they did.
It did.
Did it finally come out?
Yeah, there is a 5200.
No,
there is a 5200 adapter that you can play 2600 games.
But did Atari bring that out, or is that some weird aftermarket thing?
No, I thought they brought it out, except
I think they did.
To come up.
Okay, somebody said they did. So that's what this was going to be.
Does that work?
The same thing, and of course this would play 2600 as well, right?
Right.
And if you take this apart, what you'll see is another one of these, wire wrapped, one of a kind boards, and it's a complete 7800 inside of this.
Wow.
With TIA and Maria and everything, and all of that, and it plugs into your 5200 and it plays 7800 games.
And so that's a working unit, or is that just for?
It was working at one point.
At one point,
right?
Okay.
This was demoed at CES in 1984. This was one of the products coming for Christmas '84. We're canceling the 5200, but we'll sell you one of these, and you can play all the new ones.
Right.
Wow.
So, all right, Steve. I have
does it work? It might. The thing is, you look at these little wires in here, and all it takes is one of them to not connect, and then it's not going to work. So
right.
I put my mailing address in the chat, so you can send me anything of that you want.
PO Box 666.
We need your SSN.
Yeah. There you go.
Along with
here's the other thing I'll show off.
Oh, hold on.
So, all right. GCC had our recruiting brochures, hiring college students, and in 1983, this was our recruiting brochure, because we were very proud of Ms Pac Man, and I hacked this up manually to do this photo for the cover of our recruiting brochure, and we're showing off the work that we were doing.
Wow.
And here's Food Fight and Quantum. There's Betty Ryan, who designed Quantum, standing in front of her game. So that was like, but then for '84, we did an even slicker recruiting brochure. This won a design award, and you can just see a little bit of the Maria chip.
Wow.
Right there. But what I wanted to show off was this. This is August of '83. Uh-oh. Can't see it. We're hang on. Stand up. Here. Let me reboot my camera. Come on. Figure it out.
It's trying to figure out what
focus there.
Yeah.
It's trying to protect the innocent faces.
Yeah.
Exactly. That drunken Christmas party.
Yes.
Well, still,
hang on a second. Hang on.
That worked. Oh man.
No, it didn't work.
It might be it might have something to do with the
with StreamYard.
Yeah, it might be it might be lowering the resolution to keep things going.
No, it's the right drunk focus somehow. It seems like
somehow it's confused.
Oh yeah, it is. Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Hey.
There we go. So
there
you can see this, right?
Yep.
So
Look at
this
those
is
sexy bastards.
This is August of '83, and there's like 100-something people at General Computer, and we're all gathered around our fire pole to have this photo of. Well, you'd go to work there, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
That's me in the yellow shirt right there next to Spider-Man.
That's the guy. That guy in the yellow shirt's the guy that invented that Maria chip. I heard he was a real.
No, I won't claim that. I worked on it.
Right.
I wouldn't say I invented it. So, here's Chris Rode and Tom Westberg lying down on a Maria plot. It's if you had to credit two people, it'd be those two really. Who,
that is an incredible.
Had a lot to do with the entire architecture of 7800 and Maria.
So
wow.
So, by the way, Steve, does the name Bob DeCrescenzo ring a bell to you?
I was trying to get there. So
no,
Robert DeCrescenzo. So today, moving forward, the 7800, of course, it came out and whatever happened. Now today. Of course, the 7800 Plus has been released last November. I think it officially came out. The 7800 is getting a lot of attention from Atari and from fans as well. And Robert DeCrescenzo is probably one of the most prolific.
He's the most prolific
homebrew developer of the console. So he created Bentley Bear's Crystal Quest, if you're familiar with that. Frenzy and Berserk, just 1,000,001 ports to the 7800. Are you familiar at all with the homebrew scene around the 7800 and the things they've done?
Very little. I know that it exists.
It's massive, and what's exciting about it is it's superseded the 5200, the Jaguar, the Lynx, and probably not the 2600, but there is a lot of energy in the 7800 because they're now, and you should really look into it, Steve, because they're really tapping out what you can do. There's a game called Ricky and Vicky that looks like a Sega Genesis game.
Incredible.
And it's got incredible sound. People have created Hokey chips, which is like a cheap Pokey chip. To improve the sound. Bob's games are incredible. There's people from all over the world. There's a guy in Chile making great games named Vlad Zaninga. Be careful how you say that. But people from all over. And there's a plethora of games that are really there's a crazy guy named Revan Tully doing a bunch of dragon games. That guy.
People are doing this. People play these in emulation, correct? Or are they actually playing it on vintage hardware?
Vintage hardware, like the newest set of releases have just come out.
Okay. All right, now I'm totally
all of
these just came out. These are 7800 games. I just got them in the mail. So they're for use on your Atari 7800.
There you go.
Beautifully packaged and created. And this is all based. I mean, your guys' work is still being loved and enjoyed.
That just makes me so happy. I tell you,
Steve, I have
hardware. All right,
I have. Awesome. If you could see right back here, this is a bookshelf. This is all Atari 7800 games that have been released. I have over 200 Atari 7800 games.
Here's one for you.
Wonderful.
Get that off. But they only released 59 originally, if you include the thing they released in Europe, which was a light gun game they did not release in the United States. There's I've got over 200 right back here. So there's over 150.
That's just incredible. I mean, to have to have that level of interest in this old hardware and to have it that's just amazing. So
you created something that everybody realized was underutilized and fell up the steps to its release. And now people in the retro community, because they've always dogged the 7800, but now people are starting to realize with games like Ricky and Vicky and EXO and this Atari trophy.
There you go.
Yeah.
People are now going, because there are things that the 7800 does that's superior to the NES.
Yes.
And people
Absolutely.
are now graphically are saying, whoa, there's some really there's a lot you can do. And I'm telling you, look up this game called Ricky and Vicky. It looks like a Sega Genesis game.
Yeah,
it's unreal. A guy took 4 years off work and hired people to make Ricky and Vicky.
Yep.
That's wonderful. All right.
Absolutely. And real quick, I don't want to stop the stream abruptly, but we got some money coming in. So I have to thank you. Always appreciated. Never expected. Braylon, $2 super chat. Loving the stream. Absolutely. It's all thanks to Mr. ECDHE. No, it's all thanks to Steve Golson. We also Jeremiah has been begging us, and he's finally putting money towards it, to ask about these two games in particular. Thank you so much again, Jeremiah, for the $2 super chat. Ask about Skyfox and Nightmare. So Skyfox for the 7800. Was that ever a thing, or is that just from?
I don't know that at all. I don't think it was anything we ever developed or worked on. Is it an old Atari title, or is it?
Yeah, for the 7800, it was vaguely promoted. It might have been
vaporware.
Yeah, a screenshot in the back of the box.
It was nothing that we worked on. I don't recall that title at all. It may have been a Tramiel era title, and then never actually came out.
And
high score cartridge,
So that's what
Nightmare.
Nightmare.
So high score cartridge was done. It was announced. The game developer standards were written in such a way that all the games would use the high score cartridge, so that those initial 14 games will all work with the high score cartridge. We were talking about marketing, and what if you bring the high score cartridge to your local game store and show off your high scores, and could that turn into some sort of a marketing thing? But the idea of taking it to your friend's house and here, look at my high score and playing was a really clever thing, and we were pretty proud of that.
That would have been incredible. That was way ahead of its time, kind of.
The idea behind that, and having it built into every cartridge, so that it would just of course it has support for that. And the later titles,
Benny's
not there, so it's not going to work, right?
Just to make sure Jeremiah gets his money's worth. The second
he wants to know about Nightmare.
He wants Nightmare. He's been asking.
So Nightmare was an arcade game developed at General Computer. I'm gonna have to look at who worked on Nightmare. Oh yeah, Daryl Myers and Roland Janbergs were the main programmers for that. It was essentially Food Fight hardware. Very similar to Food Fight, and it was essentially done by the time Tramiel took over. So there actually was prototype hardware at Atari to start working on manufacturing and to put out on test, which was a really good thing, because somebody dumpster diving years later found those boards and was able to get the ROMs off of them and build a playable Nightmare. Wow. And I actually played it once at California Extreme in 2012, I think. They brought their carefully restored Nightmare boards. Basically, you take Food Fight and you hack it up and you put this new set of ROMs on it, and you can play Nightmare. And it was astonishing to me after 30 years how much I remembered of that game.
Is it a horror game? I've never heard about it. What is it?
It's like an adventure game, a maze game, but the backstory is you're this Dr. Roldar who invents this mind control technology, and you're locked away into a prison, and you have to get your way out, and something like that. And so there's all these different screens. Oh, how are you going to escape from this room? How are you going to escape from this room? And different attackers and different types of things. It's really fun. I think it would have been a great game.
It sounds like a great concept.
So there's one or two that exist in the collector world of people who have cobbled together the ROMs and have them. They're not generally available. You got to go to California Extreme when it's on play and play it.
Gotcha.
But it's wild. It's a great game. And there was all these little Easter eggs in it, and I was like playing the game. I remember that. Oh, Jesus. So, yeah,
it's funny how that stuff comes back after
all
that time.
So if you have a chance to play it. There may be a video online of somebody showing off Nightmare.
I have to bring this. Let me get to T-Bone real fast, and then we'll get to Vinny. T-Bone, $5 super chat. Thank you so much.
Okay.
He just wanted to say, for real, I keep turning on my 7800 again and again. It's great. Thanks, Steve, and lots of free comments. Yep, lots of Jolt 7800. Thank you for everything you've done. I mean, the community around the 7800 is appreciative, passionate.
It's alive and kicking.
Oh yeah, very alive and kicking. All right, go ahead, Vinny. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you the one number. Apparently, do you know what the total build of 7800s was?
The total.
How many 7800 consoles were built and sold by Atari?
100,000.
No, it was more than 100,000. I think the last count was. I was just guessing. Yeah, 1 or 3 million, I think, somewhere around there.
3.4 million or something.
Yeah, 3.44 million, I think, or something like that.
Damn.
It may have actually been closer to 5 million.
Oh, really?
And the reason I know that is because VTI, VLSI Technology, made all the Marias.
Okay.
And one of the people at Jerry Frankel, who was one of the chip designers at General Computer, an old friend of mine, when he left General Computer, he went to work at VTI at VLSI Technology, and he worked there for many years. And he told me he talked to somebody there once. He's like, "How many of those did you build? How many Marias did you sell to Atari?" And the number was something like 5 million. So it may be that there were that many.
God, that's a lot.
Who knows? Yeah, somewhere, 3 million, 3 to 5, something like that.
All right, zoom in on me real quick, John. I just want to show.
Okay, all right. Let's give Benny his airtime.
Well, no, I just want to show him like what these things, like what you've done. Yeah. Super Circus Atari Age. It's a cool box. It's basically Circus Atari.
That's amazing. Robert what's the ROM size for these cartridges these days?
ECDH, do you?
Typically can be 64, 128K.
Okay. All right.
I mean, the ones I made, I am a
there you go.
New homebrew dev for 7800, and my games, the one I've done are typically like 64 to 128K.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, I mean, that would just be outrageously huge for 40 years ago, right?
Right.
Now
we were, 16K. That was a big deal, right? 8K, 16K, maybe 32K,
144K for Bentley Bear.
Now, typically, also remember, Steve, is that these days there are some dev kits which allow to abstract, so people don't have to deal with the DLL, which is unusual to deal with.
Yes.
So you have the two big dev kits, or basic 7800 basic, which is not the basic we used to have back in the day. It's compiled. I personally like CC 7800, which is a C compiler. And actually, for one game I'm working on, I programmed the DLL myself, just to be faster. But
if you're trying to get it into a small amount of ROM, that's what you would have to do. So if you've got ROM to burn, literally get around it, right?
These days it's not a problem. I mean, like you go in cart, it's okay, 128, 124K, whatever. Back then, that was a huge amount of ROM, but not anymore.
But I think you'll appreciate this too. I mean, back in the 2000s, like people like Bob DeCrescenzo and Ken Siders, they had to program by hand. Now people have come up with these assemblers, and I'm talking multiple people, and they've perfected it to where you just basically draw on your computer and it writes this code. And I mean, people are still passionately around the world making these games on the system that you create.
Oh, it's just phenomenal. That's like, okay.
In the community, I think there's a kid that's like 11 years old who's writing games for the 7800. Again, it's still large and thriving, and
yeah, amazing. That's just astonishing to me. That's like, really.
Yeah.
Really?
Robert DiCrescenzo right here. I mean, he's wrote like maybe a dozen game or more for the 7800.
All right.
And actually, he
30
wrote for Atari.
Yeah.
You've heard of the 7800 Plus?
Yes. Well, not until you told me. Again, I'm not following the games business anymore.
Oh, okay.
Right? You told me about it. I'm like, and I went. I'm like, really?
Nobody saw it. Somebody asked me to ask you, and that's kind of interesting. You said that. Somebody in the chat said, ask Steve what he thinks about modern Atari, which I guess we're talking like the last 4 years, because there has been a resurgence. There's a new CEO named Wade Rosen. There's a lot of positive stuff. They're making new games that are good. They're making new hardware.
Well, they have. I don't know anything about them. I'm not familiar with them. I'm out of the industry long time now. But the Atari name, the logo is incredibly well known, thought of. We all remember, if you're old enough, it's like, oh, I remember Atari. Wow. And so if you could build on that, then you can have a good product. Games, for a while, even back 40 years ago, the game developers were chasing high resolution, right? And it was all about make it look exactly right and make it look perfect. And I need more pixels and all that. Does that help? Yeah, but gameplay, drives everything. And we would sit. I remember at GCC, I've got some photos of it. We would sit and play Warlords.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Which is a 4-player game on your 2600, and it's like 1K or something. But it's a fun game. It's head to head, and you can play. And the graphics are nothing special. Gameplay can be wonderful. And so you've got this very limited system, the 7800. And if you can come up with a good idea and you can, make it work, and it's an engineering challenge to, anybody could do it on an Xbox, right? Anybody could do it on a PS5. Okay. But if you're trying to do it in this very limited piece of hardware, all right, good. Make it work. And it forces you to think through what's really important about this game and gameplay.
Actually, it's the other way around. It's easier to make a game on 7800 than on an Xbox. Because on Xbox you have tools, and the main thing is that on an Xbox you need graphics and sounds which are like really good. Otherwise, it looks like crap.
Yes.
800, I can design my own graphics and get away with it.
Yeah,
I can make my own sounds and get away with it. Whereas on modern games, you need the graphics to look really good. You need a professional artist.
Well,
true.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, if you're gonna make a AAA game, absolutely, and I think or otherwise, but gameplay is always king. I think. I mean, that's you got the gameplay. Again, look at some of the most popular games are probably not the best looking. They're probably a step down from at least one step down from the best looking.
And Atari on their website, Steve, is selling a Desert Falcon shirt. I think you may.
Oh, really?
It's badass. It's badass looking too.
Yeah,
you got to check it out.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to look for. I'm glad, and I think what did I just see? Were they doing a quantum?
Yeah.
Some sort of a retro quantum game, and
they've done Quantum Recharged. It's for Steam. It's for the Atari VCS, Xbox, Nintendo.
Okay.
And I think they're about to do something else.
Amazing game.
Well, it's interesting. And unfortunately, I mean, you get into that. There's a lot of emulation issues because it's a trackball game, and it's a fast trackball game. You got to spin that thing around fast, and there's some problems with some of the arcade one-ups that has it on there. But if you play it with a real trackball, it's an amazing game. What game back then where you didn't shoot? That's why I did a review of it, and I said, a girl had to invent this. There's no shooting.
Yeah.
And
well, no, that's not true, because Food Fight Jonathan Hurd, who developed Food Fight. And he tells a story of how he developed that game. And he very deliberately said, there's all these shooting games. You know, what can you do?
Right.
That's not a shooting game. What else, you know, if you hit the button, what happens when you hit the button? And it was throw. Okay, you know, what other actions can you do? Oh, okay, you hit the button and it throws. Okay, you know, what could you throw? You could throw food. Oh, food. Oh, and just like, okay, there. And he was off to the races. He's like, Food Fight. Oh my gosh, someone else is going to come up with this idea. I have to get my game out the door before anybody else does. And off he went. And that was the idea behind Food Fight. Was, you know, it's not a shooting game, right? Something else.
Actually,
so yeah.
Instant replay. How hard was that to do on the 7800?
Oh, that's an interesting. I can't remember if it was the 7800 bug or a arcade bug. Jonathan told me. I think it was the 7800 bug that the instant replay, sometimes you would lose. Because the whole point of instant replay is that it exactly matches what you just did, right? And because during instant replay, it's playing music. Well, that disrupted the timing just a tiny bit, so that the playing back the inputs was just different enough where the outcome of the instant replay might be different than the actual play was. And I think the fix was, I may misspeak it, Jonathan will have to jump in here, but I think the fix was to always be playing music, even during the regular gameplay, except that the volume is all the way off. Okay. So the timing behind the scenes is exactly the same as during the instant replay.
Wow.
And part of the trick with instant replay was you didn't know how long the instant replay would be. So the music had to adjust itself dynamically to end the musical phrase right at the end, right?
So it's just showing the inputs the user has put in the thing. It's just replaying.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because you know, because the gameplay is exactly the same, right? The game will respond exactly the same. And so all that he does is he remembers at every time step what's the input from the player. And so if you have that, then you can replay exactly what happened on the screen. And he has this complicated algorithm. How do you decide when instant replay gets triggered?
Right.
And it has to be, it's only every fifth screen. So it can't happen all the time. So it has to be at least 5 screens since the last one. And you really have to have a near miss. Right. It can't just, at first he said it randomly picked and did an instant replay. So, well, that's not interesting. It has to be a reason. So it had to be like, yo, you were just a few pixels away from dying.
Oh, wow.
All right. And then it would say, let's do that instant replay. So that's where that came from.
That sounds like a video I'm going to be releasing this week.
Yeah. So that was Jonathan.
The secret behind instant replay.
Yeah. It's like, oh, that was beautiful. Good job, Jonathan.
Awesome.
You dreamed that up.
Awesome stuff.
So,
So we are way over time. We usually do this for an hour. We're at hour and 45 minutes, which that's, again, just goes to show how interesting and how active and into everything that the community is and how great the stuff that you have to talk about is. ECDHE, did you have something you were trying to bring up there?
One quick techie question.
Yes.
Is that so the display list seems to be kind of unique to the 7800. I've not seen it in another system.
Right.
And
how come nobody did it? Well, I think you have to start with the idea of a line RAM, of a scan line buffer.
Yep.
Right. If your architecture has a scan line buffer to do graphics, so now you have to say, all right, how do I decide what gets displayed on this scan line? And so the idea of a display list and then an indirect, what we call display list you kind of end up with some sort of a structure, memory structure like that to control your display. Now that was the difference between the first Maria we did and the Maria 2. Maria 1 just had the display list, and every scan line, the processor had to come in and set up the display list again. And what happened was the processor, you could, as Tom Westberg put it in his paper where he analyzes, he says, you can display a lot of things on the screen, but the processor doesn't have enough time to do it. Because the processor spends all its time waiting for the next scan line to put the new display list together. So that's where we said, we're going to have to add a level of indirection and have a display list so that the screen will display itself completely independent of the processor, right? You set up your memory structure and you say go, and bam, and everything displays with no processor control at all, which also makes the computer easier because you can have a static screen with the processor not having to do anything. Wow. So display list. Yeah, I would rephrase that as like, how come nobody does a scanline buffer? And the reason is, as soon as memory got cheap enough where you could do a frame buffer and your hardware got fast enough to blit things around on the screen, that's the way you're going to do it. And so this is this short period in time where that was the right answer. Was I don't have enough, I can't spend enough to do a full frame buffer, but I can spend enough to have one scan line. And TIA, right? They didn't even have enough money to do a full scan line. That's why, well, I can throw a few hundred transistors at describing a player, and you have a register that says the player is at this location horizontally, and it's all done in hardware and a few thousand transistors. But you don't have all that memory, right?
With its not a frame buffer, a line buffer.
A line buffer, correct. But they couldn't even do a line buffer in 1977, right? Yeah. So we were able to do that and use enough of our die to have a double scan line.
Real quick here, we had a few more super chats come in. Braylon for $2, best stream ever. Obviously, like Jeremiah just said here, it's because we have an interesting guest. So again, thank you so much for coming on.
Burn. That's a burn on every other show we've done.
Yeah, exactly.
And every other guest we've ever had.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. And
custom hardware was really cool. Thank you so much for that.
What was that?
Board, all the custom hardware you showed that keyboard, all that stuff. That was really
cool.
Thank you.
The visual aids, absolutely.
And someone mentioned where's all this going to go? I'm working diligently to find a place for my stash of things.
You're welcome.
All sorts of possibilities. MIT Museum, Strong Museum of Play, Computer History Museum.
Terrible. Those people are assholes.
No,
well,
no.
Send them down. Hey, send them down here.
Vinny wants them to collect dust in his closet until.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
Anyway, it's we're working on this of where things should go and where would they be best cared for, and so they'll all find a home somewhere.
Real quick.
We didn't even get into the Ms Pac Man story. That's the other.
Yeah, that's an incredible story.
My stash of Ms Pac Man ROMs and artifacts. So there's that too.
I listened to
we'll
your.
Have you back.
Oh, absolutely. I listened to your panel on Ms Pac Man. That story was incredible. Real quick, Defender 7800 $2 super chat. Thoughts? I think he wants your thoughts on ProLine versus CX10 and new 7800 sticks.
He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything about. Yeah, he doesn't know anything about the new controls.
Yeah, the new controls. Yeah, but the CX10 is he referring to
the European?
That's the original. Is that the original VCS?
I thought CX78. Yeah, so CX10 would be.
Are those the game pads? The European?
Yeah, no, that's CX78 is the European pad. So
okay,
that's has to be the one button stick, right?
Yeah, well, let me answer it very simply. I don't know.
There you go.
I don't know enough. We were pretty pleased with the ProLine controllers, mainly because they fit pretty well in your hand, and you got two separate buttons. But you know, they're cheap, right? And like I said, how come nobody had dreamed up the D-pad? That because that would have been a big win, I think. But you know, looking back, there were all sorts of things we did back then that I would change as far as gameplay and controllers.
Hindsight's always 20/20. I guess he meant the Euro pad, the CX78 versus the Pro line. But again, your opinion is
don't know.
That's interesting that and that was Atari. He said earlier in the podcast, Atari did all the controls and the shell. So that was not GCC at all. So
GCC, we dreamed up the idea of having separate buttons.
Right.
And how could you have actually use the buttons as two separate buttons on the controller? Right. Atari was like, isn't this nice? The buttons on either side. It's like, yeah, why don't you have two separate buttons and use them to do different things? So that was I think Dan Schwinn.
And the pause button was already invented, right? You guys didn't come up with that.
That was on
the pause button was on 2600.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it was on the controller for the 5200, but yeah.
So many things on the controller for 5200.
Right. Yeah. You could call your friend across the street on that.
Yeah, I know.
But so you guys had the 2-button idea. If it hadn't been for your input, are you saying they would have went 1 button once again, or is that just?
I think so, because I believe the Pro Line controller had already been designed by Atari, right? The box, the console, was the next iteration of the 2600.
Right.
Was that, and the controller this is the next iteration of the 2600 controller. I think that's the way the story went.
Gotcha.
Was they already had that done, and we're like, yeah, we'll use that, but we're going to make the buttons separate buttons. I think.
I think you're right, because there was the 2800 or the Sears Tele Arcade 2. It had almost the Joy Pad controller anyway, with the double buttons on the side, very similar to the Pro Line.
Yeah, I'd have to ask Tom Westberg or Dan Schwinn or one of those guys would remember that part of the story.
Man, you've been awesome, dude. I can't believe all the cool stuff and the stories, and we didn't even get to everything we wanted to ask.
No, we wanted to do a Q&A and everything, but unfortunately, we're getting kind of tight on time right now. But
I'd be, sure. I'll do this again if you want to talk again.
Oh, we would love to have you on as many times as you're willing to deal with us. And
I'll tell you what, we'll have you on. You'll come down here, bring all your stuff. We'll get the glass case.
Stay far away from.
We'll put it here.
There you go.
We'll clean out the closet. We'll put all the great stuff in there.
Right.
Yeah. No, man, you've been awesome. Thank you so much. We're trying to fill in the cracks of the history of the 7800. You've answered a lot. And you've answered a lot of great questions and cleared up a lot of misconceptions that's online.
There you go. There's a lot more. I mean, there's lots more stories about how what happened and how it got developed. But it was a really, really amazing, fun experience, and just how quickly we were able to get this thing out the door. From zero to done in basically a year.
Right.
We tried to do it in 6 months and it took a year, and okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good, from nothing to console plus 14 cartridges plus plans for home computer and high score cart and new audio and all of that. And
it's incredible.
You've got
an
people,
incredible accomplishment,
and there's still fruits of your labor being born to this day.
Being played, yes.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody go home. Everybody, when we all done here, go play games.
Yeah, play your 7800. Absolutely.
Go play.
Now,
go play
I
Ball
think
Blazer. Go play
I know the answer to this, but do you have a social media presence or anything you want to promote, Steve? Before we kind of separate here.
Not really.
No,
I'm an old guy. I mean, I'm on X, but I'm yet to post anything since 2009.
There you go. Oh, wow.
So you can go to @SGOLSON. You can see me there.
Well, I'm really interested to see what you posted.
The only thing I do is I'm on Instagram because I do nature photography and astrophotography, and I'm on on Instagram, so you can see me there.
That's cool. I think Ted Takuichi does that too.
So I do that, but otherwise, I'm mostly retired. Don't comment on anything. So,
that's the way you stay out of trouble that way.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much.
It's been incredible having you on here, and we absolutely have to do, I think, a part 2 and a part 3 and a part 6. Just
as
keep
long
it
as
going.
something to talk about.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think, the audience had a lot of stuff they wanted to ask. So maybe, at some point we could do just a Q&A show or something. But it's been incredible. Absolutely. Vinny, you want to promote your stuff before we get out of here?
Yeah, just real quick. This weekend I'll be at Hot Atlanta promoting the movies that we make, and also our ghost show, Wrestling with Ghosts. It's going to be in Beaufort, Georgia. I'll be there from the 14th to 16th. You can get an autograph, buy some of our junk, meet some of the pretty girls that we shoot movies with, and I'd love to meet anybody down in Georgia.
There you go. Absolutely, it'll be a good time. ECDHE, thank you so much for coming in and being our technical guy on the channel here, the smart guy, the guy that the new popular guy on the channel,
the resident software guy.
There you go. Yep, the resident software expert. We'll add expert to your name. Do you have anything you want to promote? Do you want to promote your homebrew or anything coming up?
Well, I mean, I guess you need to finish the shotgun. But
on the 7800.
Yep, and working on
7800 game.
Still working on the Rogue 7800, so roguelike for the Pro system.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And then on the channel we'll have ECDHE doing how 7800 games work here very soon. We should have recorded it yesterday, but I had some major things to deal with, so I apologize on that, but it'll be out soon enough. So make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. Thank you so much again to Steve, ECDHE, and Vinny was here too. Have a great night, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye, guys.